Hello and welcome to the show. The little 595 Abarth has been a rather popular car for FailRace videos, and today is no exception. This challenge idea came while we were filming the Gurkha racing. Someone made a joke about running the Fiats against the Gurkhas, and while that sadly doesn't quite work for a couple of reasons, to balance it so that the Gurkhas even remotely stand a chance, you have to modify them quite a lot, and they end up becoming just so difficult to drive quickly that, the balance just isn't quite there between the vehicles. Also, not everyone has the Gurkha as it's a DLC car and so on, but mainly balancing problems with the car. But I liked the idea. I liked the idea of kind of like a David versus Goliath race. And after a little bit of work, I managed to balance the vehicles with the Fiat racing against some Hummers. Let's face it, these are still really rather large compared to my tiny little Fiat. I did have to give the Fiat slightly more power. I think I gave it a supercharger up to about 50 horsepower in this, just to kind of keep the lap times similar between the vehicles. The Fiat is the slightly quicker of the two cars here. However, as you can see, it is certainly at a size disadvantage. If a Hummer defends, it is very, very hard for me to overtake it as we go 3 wide through turn 2 with me stuck in the middle of 2 Hummers. That is not a fun place to be. It's a ridiculous sight, just Hummers. Oh, there's a tiny Fiat and then Hummers everywhere. At this stage, I mean, I'm absolutely surrounded by Hummers. There's nowhere I can go. The Fiat is slightly down on straight line speed as well, so down these straights the Hummers are quicker than me. However, I do have better acceleration. Things would go wrong for cars up ahead. Somebody got turned round and then an onslaught of Hummers. Things got bumped and turned around a little bit further through the corner. Amazingly, somehow I survived all of the chaos and I am now on the inside of a Hummer through one of the fastest corners on the track. That's not a place you want to go too wide with normal cars a lot of the time, and I managed to do it with the Hummer. I mean, well done to the Hummer for staying around the outside there of the Fiat. Getting the braking right at the hairpin, a few cars escaped the course, and I was, of course, trying to find a way past the vehicles ahead. Overtaking was, tough. I have very good grip. I have phenomenal brakes in the Fiat compared to what I'm racing against, and I actually had really good acceleration out of the corners, but lacking that straight line speed meant, if I couldn't get through the corners, I was a sitting duck on the straights. Of course, if I couldn't get to the front, it was still a battle amongst the Hummers to see who could take victory. I mean, we've done Hummer racing on Forza 4. It's fantastic fun racing these vehicles. Very, very, very close stuff between them. Unfortunately, things will go a little bit wrong for the leaders. The green Hummer kind of gets squeezed out on the grass, loses it, spins across the track, clips somebody again who flips, and we have massive airtime from a Hummer. That was certainly a spectacular sight to behold, of a Hummer tumbling across the ground. It got huge airtime. I'm not quite sure how it managed to get so much high. Yeah, there were a few racing incidents, shall we say, in the opening laps while everybody was all still very, very close together. I mean, I found myself in, pretty much a Hummer sandwich for most of the race. There were some difficulties with the Fiat that I did not foresee. The standard suspension on this car made it quite awkward to drive. I mean, you saw there, it was on 3 wheels and on 2 wheels coming around that quick corner. That wasn't a problem I was quite expecting from the Fiat. And when I had issues like that, it put me in a lot of trouble. I have to make up time through the corners on these Hummers. I have to be quick through these turns because on the straights I know I'm going to get murdered. So when the car's doing that, I am in a little bit of trouble as we round this final corner. It's almost 3 wide up ahead of me around here, and now I'm coming to join in the fun with the tiny little car. I was very worried about getting squished through some of these corners. Again, it's 2 wide ahead of me, 2 wide behind me, down towards turn 1. It is a terrifying position to be in when they're surrounding you like that. Hummer goes to the inside at this first corner. I'm forced to take the wide line as a Hummer ahead of me gets on 2 wheels across the curb. We're all kind of trying to slot it. I mean, I had great drive around that corner. I'm trying to fit the Fiat through a tiny little gap. It just about worked. I just about got the car through there. I kind of got a little bit squeezed into the blue Hummer that got turned slightly sideways. In all of that, amazingly, somehow I got through that. There was a Fiat-sized gap, just about, and I kind of went for it. And it worked on the most part. And then we come to a straighter course, and now I've lost a lot of the advantages that I had. So I've got to keep making up this time through the corners. I really can't afford to be slowed down by a Hummer ahead of me. when it comes to the turns, because if one of them goes defensive somewhere, that really screws up my entire lap. So yeah, overtaking cars ahead of me quickly was a very, very important aspect of this for the Fiat. You can see the Hummers were still having a fantastic race. We come up towards the hairpin. I was trying my best to defend my position as the blue Hummer just runs out of road slightly. Yeah, getting past cars was very, very important. However, the suspension on the Fiat around this track was causing a few issues for me with that. At the front, it was an incredibly close battle for the lead between these guys, between these two. They've managed to pull a bit of a gap to the field, but the second they started fighting like this, we were then closing back up to them quite quickly. I mean, with cars like these, they are quite difficult to overtake. It's quite difficult to overtake a Hummer when you're in an identical car because, well, they don't have particularly good brakes. So having a lunge, having a dive on somebody, you've got to be really on the limit. And they've got to brake a little bit early because, you know, you're in exactly the same machinery, and these are quite large vehicles. So, you know, simply getting your vehicle alongside is quite difficult. And, you know, this battle continued for the remaining few laps. You can see how much the black Hummer behind has caught up to these two as they fought for position. If you defended the position, it was very tough to get past. Fortunately, the leader just left a little gap, and after all of his many laps of leading the race, just that one little mistake was all it took. And the green truck fired his car up the inside, and now they're going too wide through this fast corner, and the school bus cannot quite hold it, and they've got to be careful because all of a sudden the black Hummer is joining in this group very, very quickly. As we round the hairpin, they're all trying to get up the inside of one another. It's almost three wide on the exit of the hairpin. It doesn't quite fit. They all run out of road a little bit on the inside there. Up towards the final couple of quarters, you can potentially get overtakes through here, but as I said, with identical machinery, and that machinery being a Hummer, it is a little bit tough to manage that as we come up towards the final corner. The yellow Hummer is just a little bit too far back to try anything, but it's pretty much going to be a nose-to-tail finish for these three, while I would have to settle for 5th place. I got stuck behind a blue Hummer and couldn't find a way past and was struggling a little bit. I had a few too many mistakes with the suspension going a bit funky in the Fiat in that one, which, yeah, I lost a bit of confidence and then got stuck behind a Hummer, so 5th was as good as I could manage. However, we would have an incredibly close finish further back. As I said, I mean, the Hummers, you know, they're still racing each other, regardless of what my Fiat is doing. And these guys were pushing each other hard on this final lap as we round the last corner. It is a drag race between the two Hummers towards the line, but it is almost a completely dead heat down there. There's just absolutely nothing to pick between the pair of them. And when we go to the photo finish, yeah. There is pretty much no difference between them two cars. I mean, we've seen Forza calculates the finish by when the front wheel, or when the wheels cross the line, not when the bodywork or whatever crosses the line. It's when the wheels, but that is literally identical between. I think the black Hummer is ever so slightly further ahead. But that is a ridiculous finish. That's probably one of the closest finishes we've ever seen in a race, and it's between two Hummers. For our second race, we would go to the Rio Mini Circuit. While, yes, there are straights on this track, they're very, very short. There's actually a little bit more in favour of the Fiat around here because the Fiat has such good acceleration. Up towards the first corner, it is, again, a rather scary prospect for the tiny Abarth, being, well, too wide and stuck in the middle of so many Hummers. Inevitably somebody hit the tyre bundle through this opening lap. Then I get caught up, sort of stuck on the outside of a car as everybody goes wide through this next corner, which wasn't helping me particularly through there. And again, we're all running down this up towards this final hairpin, and I'm trying to make it 3 wide in the Fiat. There's just about a Fiat-sized gap through there. It is 3 Hummers wide into the last hairpin. I'm trying to sneak a by on the inside, but a Hummer gets himself there, and I'm not going to win an argument with a Hummer. However, I have the acceleration in this Abarth, and that was proving to be really very, very useful. The acceleration could get me out of trouble. I was losing out to these cars in top-end speed as we come down towards this first hairpin, but I had great acceleration out of the final turn, and that was very, very helpful. I was, still fighting my way alongside a Hummer on the outside at turn 1. I mean, it's such a bizarre spectacle from this camera angle. I love it, with just the one little Fiat and this huge train of Hummers giving chase. I may have pushed things a little bit too hard, ended up out in the wall, but managed to get away with it. Thankfully, the Hummer behind me did a similar thing, so I survived that particular moment. Again, the Hummers were racing rather hard for their positions. Wherever you ended up, you had somebody to race with on the most part. I think a couple of cars may have taken damage in this one. There were a few shunts with tyre bundles and so on, but yeah, on the most part, you had somebody to race with, whether it was my Fiat or whether it was another Hummer. They were going 2 and 3 wide through most of this track. I mean, this is a small circuit as well for racing these kind of vehicles around. But yeah, they were determined to fit at least 2 Hummers wide through all the corners. And as they bump each other out a little bit wide, the other yellow Hummer here is having a look, seeing if he can find a way past. little bit of bumping between all of the Hummers, but I mean, it didn't really affect these vehicles that much. I was at the front and contending for the lead this time around. I had a big dive into the hairpin. Thought I could get away with it. I couldn't quite, and then, well, as the Hummer understeers wide, I've got no choice but to kind of lift out of that one. Either I'm going to do that or get squashed between a wall. So yeah, you had to play things smart with the Fiat. You couldn't win an argument with a Hummer. So yeah, had to be careful from time to time. I tried having a dive up the inside at turn 1. Couldn't quite make the manoeuvre stick. I mean, the Hummers really weren't that bad to go racing with, as we're again side by side as the Fiat goes for the lead on the inside. But I kind of get tangled up with the side of the Hummer. I'm a little bit slow off the corner, and I've lost the place. The black Hummer made up 2 positions in that to get himself into the lead, and I'm now worse off than I was last lap around. And this was the difficulty, trying to get past the Hummers was proving very, very tough. I had the fastest vehicle here, there was no doubt about that, but the Hummers were so large that they could make it incredibly awkward for me to try and find a way past. Again, though, I was using that acceleration out of the hairpin to get the little Abarth up into the lead, and that was proving really helpful. That acceleration out of the final hairpin was proving very, very useful. I saw a Hummer, so I thought he was going to have a big dive at the inside, so I had to give him some space there, and he got alongside. I mean, credit to the Hummers there; they weren't doing too badly under brakes, but he got it alongside, but it wasn't enough to stay there. As the race was coming to a close, I maintained my lead, but was coming under increasing pressure. I mean, the field did spread out a little bit more through the course of the race, but still, there you can see the plethora of broken Hummers in the background. There was more spread out, but there's still plenty of close racing. On the final lap, I was having to defend from a Hummer as we round the hairpin. He got the cutback to the inside, but doesn't have the acceleration to match the Fiat. So the Abarth would take a victory. I made it all the way through the field of Hummers without being murdered, and could fend off the charge that they had in the final lap. Last race, we would go to Lime Rock for this one. I thought we'll show the replay from the onboard footage. You don't really see very much of what's going on. You just see Hummer in front of you. Like, we come up towards turn 1, I have no idea quite now what we're doing. There's Hummers either side of me, 3 wide in front of me at this stage, and now I'm in the middle of the Hummers. Get a little bit of a bump. It is a terrifying experience driving this car. I mean, the Hummers really struggle to see the Fiat. Like, I can surprise these guys really easily by having my car up, like, throwing my car up the inside. Often they don't even see me coming. So it's something you've got to be really, really wary of. I get a bit of a twitch through the corner. Then one of the Hummers up ahead gets spun round on the grass, and it is panic and fire the car across. I'm amazed I got through that. That was one of those holy crap, we're about to die moments. Somehow we just had the grip to change direction and get away with that one as we get stuck on the outside of a Hummer trying to get up the hill. Yeah, it's a terrifying experience driving the Fiat against vehicles like these, because they are so much larger than your car. You just don't see half of what's going on because your screen is full of Hummer. So that was an experience. And again, these guys were racing very, very hard with the Hummers. That's 3 wide. A really rather fast corner. Admittedly, one of the Hummers was miles off the track, but they all got through there without losing too much time. And then we have this long straight. This is where the Fiat struggled a little bit down here. Through the rest of the lap, like, again, over the course of the lap, if I was running in clean air, I was as quick as the Hummers. The problem was, if the Hummers slowed me down through the corner, even a little bit through a corner somewhere, that would screw up my entire lap because I couldn't make up the time through said corner to compensate for the lack of straight line speed. It did help me, though, massively when the Hummers were fighting like they were up front. As I said, the straight line speed in the Abarth was lacking a little bit, so as we come down towards turn 1, I get myself stuck in the middle. As the purple Hummer runs a little bit wide, I am well and truly squished between two Hummers in turn 1. And I've got the grip in the Fiat, I've got the acceleration out of the turn, I can get myself just about to the inside for the next part of the corner. But of course, that's now my lap a little bit messed up because I've been compromised massively through that first corner and so on. So yeah, I had really a tough time trying to sort of escape the grasps of these Hummers. That was definitely a scary experience as well, that one there. Not just following the Hummers, through corners and whatever and simply not seeing. That one just being swished between two of them. That could have ended a lot worse than it did, to be fair. Yeah, once released in clean air, I quickly caught up to this group. I think this was fighting for second and back. When I was running in clean air, I could take maximum speed through the chicanes and through turn 1 and so on. I could catch up to this group, and of course it was certainly helping this lot when they were helping me. When this lot were fighting in the manner that they were. That was again 3 wide into turn 1. I mean, the leader buggered off up the road, leader vanished, while these lot were all squabbling over their position. And you can see behind this group as well, there's a similar story going on with the Hummers changing positions almost every single corner. And now I'm catching up and wanting to join in the fun of the overtake. You can see how quickly I can catch up through this turn 1, turn 2, turn 3 area. I'm now right at the back of this little group trying to follow the green Hummer through down here, but there's now a straight. I'm going to lose out a little bit, but it's not too much. This chicane, this is where I was losing a lot of time through here when I was stuck behind Hummers. I could be very, very, very quick through there when I was on my own, but when I've got 2 Hummers wide ahead of me, I can't use that speed at all. So that was, proving quite costly for me here. I'm stuck on the outside at this point. There's nothing I could really do at this stage. I'm stuck on the outside of 2 Hummers. Around the outside of the green Hummer, and then up towards the final corner. I was going to have to do it all over again on the next car. That's, again, not an ideal overtaking position to be stuck on the outside of those cars, because the Hummer's understeer wide. I'm finished through there. But now we're on a straight, and I lose all of my positions because I don't have the speed. And I've been compromised through those corners, being stuck, having to go the long way round and so on. So yeah, it was tough. It was really tough making progress through here if I got tangled up with the Hummers. And that was, going to be part of the challenge. And the front, and as I said, the leader absolutely buggered off in this one. You saw the fighting that was going on for second place, so it's not exactly surprising that he could make a huge gap to the rest of us. I think that's about second in the background, but yeah, pretty solid drive from the school bus in this race. For me, well, the final laps, I kind of got stuck in this group. I simply couldn't make progress, as I was never in sort of clean air. I could never really set particularly fast lap times being stuck behind these vehicles. They were doing a great job of defending and slowing me down enough through these corners. Unfortunately, everything would go a little bit wrong for the Fiat. So as I was trying to chase down the Hummer ahead of me, he pushed it a little bit too hard, ended up in the tyre bundle. I pushed it too hard, ended up in the Hummer. And, well, that's not going to be very conducive for a healthy Fiat. Amazingly, I actually got away without too much damage. Of course, the engine being in the back of this car didn't suffer engine damage. However, it was the suspension damage that was the problem. The Hummer gets massively sideways ahead of me. I'm trying to avoid it and just lose control of my car coming down the hill with the suspension wibbling and wobbling. I bounce off the side of a Hummer, and that puts me in a tyre bundle. Perhaps not too surprising that eventually the Fiat would end up the worse for wear. Yeah, in a contest, if I've got some slight damage in my car and we ping off the side of a Hummer, or we touch the side of a Hummer, my car is not going to fare too well in that one. Little bit of a sad end for the Abarth in that final race, but yeah, perhaps not too unsurprising that it would happen at some point. It was a lot of fun, this kind of David versus Goliath racing. Terrifying being inside the Fiat when you're just surrounded by Hummer. For a lot of the laps, I didn't see a huge amount out the front of my car. It was just sort of certainly the early laps was just follow the cars ahead and pray you don't get squished. But yeah, it was an interesting challenge, certainly. As I said, very, very important to get overtakes done quickly, because as soon as you get held up, if a Hummer can defend from me, through the corners, it was so easy to be held up and just get stuck behind it, unable to overtake. But yeah, it was an awful lot of fun and a rather interesting racing experience. Anyway, that is it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.